This is where it all began. Near a donation booth, sitting and hoping for anyone to come by. I was originally repulsed by the game, as it is entirely stimulated by money only. But after some time, I've come to realize the benefits for such a place. In my idleness, I witnessed countless oddities. I saw how deception was used to one's profit. Lies, disguises and such. I saw how akin to a slot machine this kind of game is. Your happiness is determined by luck and connections. And if you had none of these, you would be in a state of decay, just like the countless unlucky players before you.
What is going on? I don't get it. This person already has tons of Robux. Why is this person getting donated lifetime amounts of Robux from other rich dudes? Shouldn't this Robux be used to donate other players? The ones who do need it?
In such a place, fairness is rarely an occurrence. Only but a small minority gets preferential treatments. I was blessed unlike most. This stroke of luck allowed me to not only reshape myself, but also create vessels out of it.
Vessels? To whom do you refer as vessels? And how is this conversation related to the three of us?
Because we owe our identities to this place. After I got blessed by a substantial donation, I used a currency to reshape myself. And with the leftovers, I created vessels. I crafted, shaped your destinies. This resulted with the existence of you three. You would be most honorable and serene, but the harshest and proactive amongst us, in dire situations. You would be silent, deadly. The shadows would bring you comfort. But you would also be loyal and ethical in your actions. You would be bold and confrontational, but also the more righteous in comparison to all of us. Even if the place I speak of is full of deception, know this. Had it not been for the creation of this place, who we are now, our identities never could have been possible. Which is why we have to dig up what lurks beneath, to show that this place is not as great as many make it seem to be. Yes, please donate played a vital part for me. It is the reason why I am able to look like this. Even if this game has brought joy to many, it is filled with vices and unfairness. Some players have yet to get what they want, or even get donated for weeks, months. While others who got enough Robux, still ask for more, leaving no room for the truly needy. Before I get into the problems, let me explain to you what the game is, and the creator behind it. Please donate, during the time it came out, was very unique. It was essentially the first game that easily gathered people around, in order to facilitate cash flow between users. It was, and still is realistically, the only way for the average user to get free Robux. It is a donation game. Well, I cannot even call it a game, as there's no game to be played. Treat it rather as a gathering. Robux is the only thing that fuels the game. Transaction is the gameplay. It is a place where people can go to either receive donations, or donate to other people. There's only your willingness to donate, and that of others, as gameplay. In this place, you can claim goods and create game passes. These game passes, that are created from your places, are going to appear on your booth and are essentially your donation button receivers. You can customize your booth and its text for specific purposes, or just for the fun of it. There have been many donations involving millions of dollars worth of Robux, and the creator behind it is a user called Hazem. I will not go deep into his backstory, but just enough so that you know who he is. Hazem right now is currently the youngest rich user in the platform. Very early, he had a passion for game development. Although most of his games were unsuccessful, the first one to gain any sort of popularity was Type Race. It got some attention, but not the type of attention he currently has. Unusual in his approach, he would start to develop Please Donate, as most likely, he saw that getting Robux was exclusively a pay-to-get currency. Maybe he did know, or maybe he never knew, but his idea would bring him endless spoils for the coming days. And that begs the question, how does Hazem make Robux off the donations? Hazem makes Robux off of 10% of each individual donations. From 10 Robux, he takes 1 Robux. From 100 Robux, he takes 10 Robux. From 1 million Robux, he takes 100,000 Robux. Add up the numbers of donations that went through in the previous days, months, years, including the outrageous amounts that some people give to others, and you can see why he got rich quite easily. The most peculiar fact about him is that he does not cash in with the Robux he gets most of the time, which is what a Roblox developer would normally do. Instead, he donates it to other people, outside and during live streams. Goodwill's a rare commodity on the internet. For that, and for the things he brought to the platform, he deserves the glory. The boy deserves every single penny he makes off from his game, despite the ridiculousness of his game passes and various in-game microtransactions. Rightly so, he and his game currently have overwhelming support. It's the reason I first heard of the game in the first place. I wanted to see if it was truly possible to get Robux, and possibly get rich like the countless users getting rich fast. I did get Robux, yes. But at what cost? I purchased my redemption with time, too much time. And as for getting rich fast, that proved to be a sweet lie. This place has many problems, but the greatest of all overshadows everything, literally. Currently, please donate, in the way it markets itself, in the way the creator casually hands out Robux to users, and in the way overwhelming support surrounds it. A veil of deception was created. This huge veil of deception not only hides every single problem, but also straight up lies to you indirectly. There are many examples of this said deception, this fake ideal that the game conveys to you indirectly. You might have seen people getting donated huge amounts, whether it was in social media or in the game directly. You might be enticed into playing the game, seeing that these strangers get lifetime amounts of Robux. But here's the thing. From the billions of players that joined this place, these rich beggars are amongst the very low minority. It is not the status quo for a stranger to simply receive an absurd amount. The average person is never going to get these high amounts, as there are numerous factors that prevent them from doing so, factors outside of their controls, and factors that can never be achieved by some. Added with other elements, such as public stunts, connections, media presence, influence, and you get a totally different reality from what is usually shown to you, like how casinos tell you that you can win it big. But in the end, you lose everything. Here, in Please Donate, you do not risk anything, but you do lose something as equally valuable for some. Your time. Time wasted because you thought you might get donated like the users you saw. Time wasted because you thought you might reach 10k Robux, 9k, 5k, or even time wasted because you thought you'd get donated reasonably. But in the end, you get disillusioned with the game, as you see it for what it truly is. That is, if you already played the game for a substantial amount of time. Like I did. I will now show you what happens in-game. I will now present to you what lurks beneath this veil of deception, so that you can better understand and see the extent of its deceit. For a long time, during and after I've stopped investing myself in the game, I've realized that there are many problems to Please Donate, problems that you can only discover for yourself once you play it, as currently, there are little to no videos circulating around social media, speaking ill or criticizing this place. The following part of this video will be centered around the problems that I've discovered, and realities that most players share. The first problem that every player faces is the likelihood of getting donations, and the amount you get per donations. That is something most intuitively think of. And it is often implied or thought out that after waiting a long time, eventually, but surely, you'll get some decent amounts. That, however, hasn't been the case for many. On the contrary, many have yet to pass the 5k Robux threshold. And for some, the numbers gotten through weeks, months, even years, couldn't amount to anything close to 3k. Usually, the highest donations are done through contacts, or in a lot of cases, voice chat servers. This already blocks off a large portion of the player base from attaining higher donations, for the better, and for the worse. To show that discrepancy in donations between users, I can refer to the countless ones that actively play this game, and to two of my closest contacts. I've been able to interview players concerning their experience with their activities. While I cannot generalize to the whole population, I can, however, make an educated estimate that most players aren't so lucky. Our first user has played for quite a while, and managed to acquire more than 3,000 Robux. The problem comes from the frequency of donations. Not only does the subject get unsubstantial amounts per donations, but also reaches stagnation, which is perpetually repeated. Having played for 6 months, the next user was even more unlucky. To me, the interviewed represents the average player on Please Donate. Not only he was not able to achieve 1k, but even after relying on his friends, the Robux couldn't amount to anything satisfactory. After spending time, the user learned that the majority is never going to achieve high amounts, the same way it happened to him. Having played for approximately 1 year, this user managed to acquire a decent amount. Despite this, he is quite critical about Please Donate. Because of his experience, he has witnessed a lot of things that made him question about the fairness of donations, and the circumstances surrounding this place. He speaks of how luck is what determines if you are going to get donated or not, as is most of the case in games where RNG is involved. He also makes a comparison to the UGC limited problems, a subject that still attracts problems to this day. The subject has complained about Hazm's past donation live streams, as the ones trying to join the creator were already set for failure. It was more of a show than a charity live stream, which is unfortunate for those with hope. The next user was unfortunate, as most of the donations he got were underwhelming. Still, this one retains his generous nature, despite his current condition. He is waiting for his chance to come, even if the chance is more likely to never exist. I've managed to get footage off of these two kids. Despite their cheerful nature, both of them were unlucky. Yet, they still play this game, hoping and anticipating for something greater. Throughout these interviews, we can make a conclusion out of it. This uncertainty of the frequency of donations can often be displeasing, as sitting just for someone to donate to them isn't going to improve their odds. This void of any sort of guarantee entices some to be proactive, in order to seek donations. Which leads to my next problem. Beggars. Normally, when people beg on the internet, it can easily be ignored, as their pleading isn't constantly pushed to your faces. By one click or movement of the mouse, you can swipe away whatever is in front of you. And in the cases where people beg in video games, these ones can easily be ignored. What I said applies to Roblox during its early days and in its current version. However, the case of Please Donate is exceptional when it comes to begging. Within the platform, there are a lot of children who cannot afford Robux. Of course, there are those who are older amongst them, but the main point is the following. Please Donate is a place that easily gathers people to facilitate cash flow between users. Please Donate is easy to understand and to get in. Please Donate can get you free Robux. Who's the main player demographic on Roblox? Children. Who cannot proceed to conclude microtransactions most of the time? Children. Who are most likely to beg in order to get what they want, disregarding any sort of respect of social norms? Children. These circumstances allowed the flourishing of some of the most excessive begging that I've seen on the internet. The ones perpetuating it are quite persistent, as they were not yet taught to not act like this on the internet. And since you can only buy Robux, or get donated, a lot are going to beg for it. Some, however, are willing to use tools to get what they want. Which leads to my next point. Bots. It may not be a surprise to you, but Please Donate is a perfect environment for bots to take over. Under many ways, these bots are used to store Robux gotten from donations in order to transfer it to the main accounts or any sort of numerical Robux storage system. It is practically the same as being AFK, but with added steps. With these bots filling up most servers, a lot of players, even if some of them learn, can have a hard time discerning the real from the fake ones. En masse, bots in Please Donate are often used in conjunction with deceit. But it doesn't mean that players themselves do not lie on the spot, which leads to my next point: scammers and liars. It is unfortunate how similar it is to real life when it comes to lying. Children, teenagers, adults, players of all ages scam and lie to donators. Starting with bots. A lot of these bots pretend to be players and usually place messages that are sympathetic in nature in order to attract donations. However, they are nothing but tools, programmed by a human to get a maximum amount of profit, no matter the cost. They may also scam, taking your Robux with the promise of giving you more, but whenever that happens, they either do nothing, or leave the server, as they are most likely programmed to do so upon crossing a certain threshold or requirement, which can be to leave after getting donated. Unfortunate that these tactics work, as bots and AFK users are getting considerably more than some. Even more unfortunate are the real players exerting lies and scams, especially when it's a child. Their deceitful behavior is born out of a lack of riches, but would they still act the same if they were ridden with fortune? This leads to my next point. The rich gets richer. This point may seem ambiguous at a first glance, but it makes sense once you think about it. Most donations in this game are done by rich people, to rich people. This can be seen not only in the leaderboard, but also on social media. Those who've gotten plenty still ask for more, and somehow, they manage to attract more donations than the poor players. This creates a dichotomy, upon which the rich users usually get more and more donations, whereas the poor users get moderately less, and in some cases, lesser and lesser donations. A lot of poor players can even reach stagnation, upon which they no longer receive donations for a long and undetermined amount of time. I've implied at the start of the video that the truly needy have little space, because those who take the spotlight are the more fortunate players. It's quite ironic, isn't it? The poor, who's usually the first ones you should donate to, are ignored over the more fortunate ones. And this process continues over and over again. Please donate, and more importantly, the videos made about it. None have spoken of the existence of such problems. Which leads to my next point. A fake ideal. Through videos and trailers, Please Donate is often depicted as a place where you can get free Robux reasonably. Or for some, get Robux that can last you for a lifetime. This, however, does not reflect the reality of the everyday player, nor the amount of time necessary to spend in. Player hears of Please Donate. Player wants to get Robux. Player joins, but takes time to create a booth. Player finishes and awaits for donations. After some time has passed, perhaps weeks or months, the player manages to amass a number of donations. However, the player is still unsatisfied, as usually, the amount gotten does not fulfill the amount truly desired. In his idleness, the player sees that he is surrounded by players as equally poor as him. Player does not look for ways to get Robux efficiently, as the player is the average user on Roblox. Player gets dissatisfaction from the time wasted, gaining an unsubstantial amount of Robux. In order to compensate for that lost time, most users in Please Donate are going to keep playing the game, as they still hope and anticipate for a substantial donation. Or, in some cases, player leaves, never to return unless for specific reasons. But in the end, not even those who stay get what they want, as they might reach stagnation, or get donated with little amounts. This situation can be applied over and over to the majority. The people that excessively make content about the game, or the groups that monstrously praise it are often than not people that profited heavily off of this place, and the creator himself. Of course, you don't need to be rich to like Please Donate, but even then, this place shouldn't be as glorified as it is now. Not while the true experience remains incompatible with what most think, or abstains to say. Throughout the video, we've seen that players have this strong feeling, this strong sense of hope that they'll get lucky. It seems hopeless and unlikely given the circumstances we've spoken about, but like gamblers, they still continue their activities. How do we explain this behavior into concrete words, and not out of intuition? This leads to my final problem. Dopamine by anticipation. There is a psychological effect at play. In the field of neuroscience, studies have shown that gamblers get dopamine not necessarily by only winning. The anticipation to win itself is enough for the brain to release large amounts of dopamine, the hormone for happiness. This is called behavioral stimulation, and it is the reason why some tend to gamble despite the low odds of winning. Thinking of what they might win is what reinforces their gambling addiction. We can apply that same logic to Please Donate. After finishing setting up a booth, a random player might get rewarded depending on the time spent and how they use the time. There is still luck involved, just like casinos. But the only thing gambled is time, whether it is wasted or not. The first donation gives the player a lot of happiness, as it might be the first time that they get Robux for free. Since they seek more donations, they're gonna try different things. If these things, such as excessive begging or bot hosting, bring them more Robux, they'll keep doing it to get better rewards. And after that, anticipation will dominate them. The children that play Please Donate are already subject to this behavioral stimulation, as most likely, their begging attracted donations. Those who use bots, auto-clickers, lies, do it not only to get a continuous stream of Robux, but because they anticipate a greater reward. Perhaps 100,000 Robux, or even 1 million Robux. But most of the time, that anticipation is often rewarded by small bits and pieces. Some are stuck in this trance, while others wake up from it. All are subject to this psychological effect. No one can be exempted from it. I know this effect exists not only because of the literature present about this phenomenon, but because I've felt it as well. This concludes our list of problems. And most likely, some of you may be interested in why I stopped playing this game. I got more than most could ever get in lifetime. For I do not see Please Donate as an actual game, but more so a place for charity. Under the veil of morality, perpetuating my activities would be immoral. I would be no different than these rich beggars. And because of that, I only join this place occasionally, to see what the players are up to. It's unfortunate that most Roblox YouTubers, the big ones at least, are deterred from these sorts of discussions. To this day, aside from some small channels, no one has spoken about the implications of these problems. Just like the UGC Limited's problems that went ignored, problems that I spoke about in one of my previous videos. But then again, they have no interest to do so, just like how they have no interest in tackling the problems of Please Donate. Ultimately, if these online personalities won't directly speak about subjects such as these, we must do the talking instead. I have feelings conflicting against one another. In one hand, the importance of this place cannot be ignored. A lot of players, who never got the chance to get some Robux, finally have the opportunity to spend money for cheap accessories or basic clothing. In short, they can afford the minimum of needs. Remember what I've shown you at the start of this video. The only reason I am able to look as I do, was because a bystander, a stranger, simply felt like giving me a generous amount. I still, to this day, do not understand the reasoning for it. But during that day, I knew deep down that it wasn't done entirely with goodwill in mind, as the user did it for internet attention, like the many YouTubers who record themselves donating to others. But on the other hand, Please Donate, in a way, symbolizes modern Roblox for me. At least, the parts that I dislike. It has no gameplay. The only thing that stimulates any sort of activity is transaction. Transaction is the only relevant gameplay element. That's what makes you able to buy booths, bring to light some special effects for servers and such. It's like a microtransaction store, but with a game, as a leftover bonus, like what Walmart is doing. And that paved the way for many vices to be shaped. Worst of all, it's not entirely the boys' fault. As all young folks will do, if they find something that'll bring them capital, they'll invest in that thing without worrying or anticipating any sort of consequences. And after his success, he got known as the rich guy from the donation game. Most of the time, he is only relevant when money is mentioned, which is a shame. His good actions are overshadowed by his wealth. The everyday player, who knows of has him, instinctively think that he's going to give them Robux. The majority's perception of the boy has been narrowed down to that of an ATM, a money dispenser machine. But then again, the boy has certainly given the timid through his marketing practices, so he is not entirely without fault. Despite my respect for the kid, my conflicting emotions still linger. These feelings will never disappear. Even so, it's not advised to retain these contradictory feelings, as at last, I've done my part educating you, the viewers, about the circumstances surrounding this place. The following message is directed to all. As I will always say, viewers, be good. Stay good, for the rest of your lives. If your goodwill isn't going to be rewarded by others throughout your journey, then I assure you, God will. Not even the tiniest of atoms are lost to God, so have faith. Everything shall be cool and good.
It's been months since we investigated these UGC limiteds. We still are technically the only ones who successfully brought to light this issue. Despite our success, it was short-lived and devoid of any long-lasting change. Things have only worsened. There seems to be new phenomenons attached to these UGC limiteds. I fear that our efforts might be in vain. Still, we must continue to report on mentioned and newly discovered anomalies. We have yet to see someone else report on this in an open manner.